You brought up a good point and gets us to the next topic I wanted to touch on with you, which is this idea of accountability. And like you said, there's a whole segment of the population that are screaming pretty loudly, and I'm down here in Georgia, in Atlanta, right outside Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, and she's been the most recent that I've seen loudest voice who has kind of re-energized this call for Trump to pardon Chauvin. Seems like it's gaining some steam. I saw a post on social media from you that where you were like, "Hey, I've been telling people he's gonna pardon Chauvin on the 5th year anniversary if he gets elected." And then you wrote a great piece in the Star Trib in the op-ed. Salute to you for that, and thank you for adding that perspective. Talk a little bit about that. Like, one, do you really think that's going to happen? What happens in Minneapolis if that happens? What's the message? I mean, these are all things you wrote about, and if I will link to the Star Trib. Sure. Well, maybe because I don't.
No, it's not paywall. No, you can go Star Trib. Like it's
okay. Good. I was like, I don't want to put money in their pocket.
No.
I do want people to read what you wrote.
No, they're doing a good job this week, putting everything related to the 5-year anniversary. Is basically no paywall. So.
Okay.
And right. I worked like hell trying to get that to a wider audience, but no one, like, it's just like I appreciate that the Strip did it, and they basically let it run at, like, it's way longer than their normal length. Like they did me a solid.
It's a thorough piece. Yeah.
The man who pardoned the people who attacked the police, the man who fancies himself a dictator, the man who, I'm almost 60, man. Like, growing up in the 80s on the East Coast, Trump was a rap punchline. And then when
absolutely,
when he did the Central Park 5 dirty and kept going, calling for the full page ad, calling for their death penalty, even after they were clearly innocent and vindicated and then exonerated, he would not back down.
Right? Still hasn't.
So that tells us all we need to know. Like, that sense of bristling, like, white fury. And I tell you that what I think a lot of the nice, kind of nice white people don't understand is it's the fact that a lot of white people had to hold their tongues after 2020 because the sheer inhumanity of what we saw made it undeniable. And so they sat on their crosses and on their hard R's and seethed. And then what we ended up having was these attacks on woke, which isn't a thing.
Right? At all.
The attacks on DEI, the attacks on BLM, on CRT, all the initials are just another way of saying the hard R, right?
Yep.
Let's go Brandon is like it's the same, but they're getting away with it because they've got the numbers, and it's that malignant white fury meeting the abdication of accountability, right?
Yeah.
That hysterical, I cannot accept the facts about this country, and so I'm not going to allow anyone to talk about them, right? If we were really so supreme, we would have no problem letting people talk about it.
Listen, right? Apparently you got to defend Caitlin Clark against Angel Reed and all that just to make sure that, you know what I mean, everybody knows how great you are.
Hey man, I just went to my 40th high school reunion last weekend. I was flashing back to splitting time between watching the Lakers Celtics epic finals and chasing young women. And none of us are young anymore, but that same contrived, and it used to be just sports, sports talk. And then I went to school in Boston where, the hard R was everywhere. Like,
yeah.
It was, there's a reason why Boston is Boston, right? And
I got some clients out there, and it's a different world. It's a different world.
And, and now it's fabricated. Like, like we don't need to compare Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Let them become who they are. Like, it's just such dumb, but that's a separate thing. We don't need MSNBC 24 hours. We don't need CNN. We should just nuke Fox News down in your neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And or actually that was CNN's down there. I'm sorry, my bad. And then
they're on enough TVs down here
of
to be
course.
down here. Trust me.
And then ESPN, like we don't need 24 hours a day because they just jibber jabber. They have to fill the thing, and so now we're gonna have hours and hours about what's his name making the choking. Like it's just filling airwaves, and then it allows people to become dumb. Right? They're not thoughtful. There's no nuance. But I think I would not be surprised if Trump does it just to stick poke a stick into the eye of Minneapolis.
You know, and I was talking about this. I think you're right? I think you're spot on that there's just this you know, a lot of people accuse me and probably you. I'm interested in if you've had this experience of like, oh, you're the guiltiest white man ever. How come you hate yourself so much? And I always find that interesting because I'm like, I actually think the most common manifestation of white guilt is the refusal to own the history that is objective in this country, right? So I find that interesting, but there's this inability to tell the truth, right? To own it. And so we sanitize, we scrub, we do all that. And it serves its purpose. It serves its purpose for whiteness to divide people, to give people something to cling to. And I do think Trump is that petty, right? That he would do something against Minneapolis. I don't think it's a coincidence that the DOJ pulled and the consent decrees is for those watching. Jeremy used that term. That's officially what the DOJ uses to enter into reform and some oversight. I don't think it's a coincidence. I also don't think it's a coincidence that this started to pick up steam as Trump is in the Middle East, in these majority Muslim countries, taking money, doing business deals with people that his base hate, right? And you know, you started to see some people on the far right being like, why are we taking money from them? Why are we, you know, Islamophobia, anti-Arab racism, all of these things. And so I also think it's a part of the calculus, maybe not from Trump personally, but from certainly the people around him to say, politically, this might be a good move to appease your base in this moment where they're asking some questions. Now, some of that critique has fallen apart, right? As the budget bill passed, you know, things like that. But I think there's just a way where it's this really superficial, really shallow, which whiteness is, right? And him pardoning Chauvin feels like almost low-hanging fruit at this time.
It is. Right.
Like, it doesn't feel like this grandiose gesture anymore. It feels like everybody I know that's talking about him is like, oh yeah, we're getting ready for that.
Sure.
He's going to do that. We expect him to do that. So the second part of that question is, does it matter? What will happen in Minneapolis? Like, does it matter to people that he's going to do this?
Right. I want to go. I mean, I don't think there are going to be a whole lot of right wingers who are hanging in on this conversation. I'm not sure.
Nah, I get a couple trolls every now and then, but there ain't a whole lot of them.
People interested in the conversation because I think like the Central Park 5 thing is like Trump's racism, his anger, and that's the thing, the anger that a lot of people like him felt that they could, like, that for once an officer was held accountable for killing a black man. Like that shook people in a way that, again, like the guiltiest of white supremacists are the ones who have to make sure that nothing ever challenges these false claims of how great we are. I think it is because he hates Minneapolis, he hates Minnesota, and he would, and I love the fact that most progressives in the city feel that the mayor is kind of a patsy for the, you know, a toady for the big money interests, and the New York Times cannot find a way to have a critical line about him, and yet Trump's over there talking about this crazy liberal whiny you know, and at this point I don't take anything Trump says seriously because it's just brain melt. But
yeah,
as a provocation, right, it will throw a bone to a very small group of people. I don't think the base gives a shit about the Middle East because the base allowed all the, back the blue, let him pardon the, January 6ers,
That's a
And
good
so,
point. That might be all they need, right?
right, I mean, there's a
Is
certain point,
that
it's like they've been so lost in the, there's no way to sustain a logical engagement for anything that's happening. Does it matter? What I hope we are clear enough as a city not to get tricked into doing something, because all he wants to do is push the button and send the military in, right? And the
absolutely.
first thing he will do is send a bunch of Humvees or Bradleys down Chicago Ave and plow through that beautiful memorial, right?
Yep.
That is what he wants to do. That provocation, and that's, I think, what he's looking to do on a grand level in the nation. You know, weaponizing the police, weaponizing ICE, all that, like, you know, like it. And if we are disciplined and recognize, first of all, Chauvin's not getting out of prison anytime soon, and he's going to be
Right.
sent from a federal to a state where he's more likely to have a less happy existence.
Yep.
Like, and the governor's been clear about that, right? Like, even,
Ellison's been clear about
yeah,
that.
both of them, but
Like
yeah,
that
but
man,
both.
that man's got 22 and a half years
Yeah,
to the state of Minnesota.
right. And but it's the same way. But this is like this is the piece that I've kind of tried to tell people all along, is there was a lot of hurt and anger that boiled over those first couple days of the uprising. There were a lot of deliberate provocation and saboteurs roaming around, predominantly white supremacists, but not only. Like, there were some
Yeah.
anarchists who, like, I read this anarchist like post evaluation about what they were doing, and like it was fascinating to read, but opportunistic fuckery essentially. But the white, like I saw more scary looking white people running around looking for mayhem when I was working at the, like, towards the end of the stuff. Like, that for me remains true. And people, you know, it's all the white people are like, Minneapolis is still burning. It's like, fuck you. It was over in
Yeah.
5
Oh,
Right.
100%. I was up there, you know, and I was doing I was involved in organizing, I was involved
Right.
in like community safety stuff during the uprisings and all that, and definitely saw the white supremacists out with, you know, the cardboard over the license plates and all that. My experience was that they weren't where a lot of people said they were, right? Like the danger wasn't where people said the danger was.
Right.
Right. And that's similar. And this didn't get the type of media attention that um the uprisings and the summer of racial reckoning got, but the 4th precinct, when Jamar Clark was murdered by Minneapolis police, that was a beautiful space, right? The violence came from outside white nationalists shooting at it. There wasn't violence in the camp and stuff.
Right. And a confused Asian kid who was hanging out with the
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So I was a chief at that. I was chief of the 5th district, which in Minneapolis is like northeast. And
Yep.
But Plymouth cuts through my area. So I was working that night where those guys started shit over there.
Where they were shooting at them?
Yeah. And I was working that, and yes, it's hard. But I also think when I testified in the state trial and all of downtown was shut down, and they were like, and I watched, and it was a fortified, barricaded military installation, and I kind of said, well, first of all, what verdict are they expecting?
Yeah.
And who are they expecting to start shit, right? And then as soon as he was found guilty, they all went away. And so there is that, in that, like, the feebleness of a white imagination, only being able to see, like, not being able to see black suffering and black grief, but the fear of blackness. And so this idea that all black people are only going to riot. And I was like, I was so much more worried about white supremacists coming in than I was worried about, you know, like, if it had been innocent and people had been protesting, I worried that there would be white supremacists who would look opportunistically start shit, right?
Absolutely.
And I was like,
Absolutely.
I hope at the upper levels, the military and police, someone intelligence, were on top of that. But I'm not.
That might be wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I think you bring up an interesting point too, in terms of and it's connected to your work, or at least I was drawing these connections. You talk about trauma sponges, right? In the way that people in your work, that you experience so much of it. And that's true even in just the human experience, right? Like, Resma talks about this a lot, and like in the somatic abolition work that has gotten a little bit more popular, this idea that white folks, men, people who are in this, like, we have our own work to do that's healing work.
Yeah.
That is not this just abstract sort of like hippity dippity
Sure.
weird stuff. It's legitimately like we have generations, and now we understand that through epigenetics that our genes activate in different ways depending on our circumstances and our environment.
Yep.
And when you hear about one of my colleagues is writing a historical fiction work, and she is studying the 30 Years War and some of the Europe stuff to understand what's going on. And it's like, when you realize what Europeans were doing to each other, what those folks we now call white were doing to each other, you understand how we could do that to other people. And we've never ever taken seriously that healing work, right? And we've been in space, you've heard me talk, that's what my work has centered on in these last 5 years, is the work of what I call recognizing the wound of whiteness on those of us that move as white, so that we can begin to heal that and show up not for other people who are suffering from racism, but heal from what whiteness has done to us and show up in service of a different world altogether.